Hello everyone, welcome back to Tu Tien RV channel. In today's episode, we will witness a heartbreaking reunion, seemingly a happy one but causing Tu Tien to panic when facing the woman who is said to be her biological mother. Jack stands there, stunned, not understanding what is really going on in the mind of the girl he loves. What in the past caused Tu Tien to react so violently? And Jack, what can he do to protect her from the fear that is surrounding her? Don't take your eyes off the screen. The emotional and mysterious story will be revealed right after this. Jack still hadn't found out the true identity of the old woman that Mrs. Tui and her daughter had met the day before. That person was Mrs. Nan, Tu Tien's biological mother. Therefore, he couldn't intervene to stop Mrs. Tui and her daughter's plot to extort money, making the situation even more difficult to control. Taking advantage of Mrs. Nan and her husband's trust and their longing for their child, Mrs. Tui and her daughter continued to make up a tearful story to seize money. After a quick meeting with Mrs. Tui, Mrs. Nan hurried home with a bewildered face and a pounding heart. As soon as she entered the door, she called out to her husband in a trembling voice, "Honey, there's a woman who said she knew about our daughter, but now she says she's lost contact with her. They need money to continue looking for her." Hearing that, her husband was stunned, then silently nodded. The old couple, who had lived in torment and waiting for years, now needed only to hear vaguely that someone knew Tu Tien's whereabouts to cling to that fragile hope, even though they knew it could be a trap. Without any doubt, Mrs. Nan took the money that Mrs. Tui asked for, then called Mrs. Tui to meet at a small coffee shop near the bus station. When Mrs. Nan arrived, Mrs. Tui was already sitting. On the table was a glass of iced tea that had not been drunk yet. Mrs. Tui saw Mrs. Nan's figure entering and immediately jumped up, her eyes darting around furtively, her hands rubbing together in a hurry. "Did you bring the money? Give it here quickly. I have to catch a bus to find Tien for you in time." Mrs. Thui's voice was urgent, as if she was fighting for every second. Before Mrs. Nan could ask anything more, Mrs. Tui rushed forward and grabbed the stack of money. Before Mrs. Nan could open her mouth, she turned around, walked as fast as running, and disappeared into the chaotic crowd on the street. Mrs. Nan stood frozen in front of the coffee shop, her hands trembling as she held the empty bag, her eyes filled with tears. She still believed in her heart that the woman could really find her daughter. Little did she know that her faith was being exploited little by little. After that uneasy meeting, Mrs. Nan returned home with a strange feeling. Although she trusted the woman named Tui, deep inside she still had something uneasy. It was that abnormality that made her decide to call Jack, telling him everything, from Mrs. Thui's promise to the amount of money she had given. After listening, Jack was stunned. He was silent for a few seconds and then clenched the phone tightly. "Uncle, I think something is wrong. Let me investigate this case again. If someone is really taking advantage of your trust, I will not let them be." Jack's voice rang out with determination. The next morning, Jack secretly went to the old boarding house where he had seen Mrs. Tui and her children. Through a few conversations pretending to ask questions, he learned that Mrs. Tui had recently been going in and out of a boarding house in a small alley. Not far away, Jack rented a motorbike, followed the address and decided to pretend to be an old acquaintance to go and investigate. At that boarding house, it didn't take Jack long to find the room of Mrs. Tui and her daughter. Inside, through the slightly open door, he vaguely heard a voice, "Mom, that old lady is really easy to trick. Just a few hints and she gave me money. Tomorrow I'll say I lost the guide and ask for more. No matter what." It was the voice of Mrs. Thui's son, Tien. Jack's whole body froze. Those words were like a slap in the face. Everything he suspected was now clear. They were deceiving him. And the one who was taken advantage of was Mrs. Tui, the woman who had lived her whole life in torment for losing her daughter. Jack thought, how could they deceive one person after another? But Jack did not know that Mrs. Nan was the real mother of Tu Tien. So things turned out like this. It was truly an ironic fate that the daughter was right in front of her eyes, but neither mother nor daughter realized it. Not letting his emotions overwhelm him, Jack quietly turned away, called a close friend who worked in the security industry to ask for support in monitoring and collecting more evidence. He understood that without clear evidence, it would be very difficult to expose Mrs. Tui and her daughter. Tu Tien was sleeping peacefully on the small bed next to the window, the gentle wind blowing through the gaps of the curtains, swaying the thin white curtains. But in that seemingly peaceful sleep, she began to frown slightly. Her eyelids trembled slightly. A dream came like an undercurrent. In that dream, she saw herself standing in the middle of a strange, cold, dark house. In front of her was a middle-aged woman, with a fierce appearance, a frowning face, and eyes full of hatred. That woman kept screaming, scolding her with harsh words, "You useless thing. No one in this house needs someone like you. Get lost. Tu Tien was scared, her hands clasped together, taking steps back. She wanted to say something but her mouth was stiff. Her throat choked as if being squeezed. Every sound became distorted, unclear. The woman's face also gradually faded, leaving in her mind only a feeling of cruelty and extreme hurt. She didn't know who it was. She just vaguely felt that person had treated her very badly. Outside the dream, Jack sat on the edge of the bed, still reading a book. He happened to glance at Tu Tien and was startled when she started to moan softly, her hands scratching lightly at the bed sheet, her mouth muttering something unclear. Her forehead was covered in sweat. Her cheeks were red. Jack immediately put the book aside, bent down and shook her gently. Tu Tien? What's wrong with you? But she was still deep in the nightmare. Her eyes twitched slightly. Her breathing was rapid. Extremely worried, Jack called out louder, Tu Tien, wake up. Suddenly, she woke up as if she had just been pulled out of a deep abyss. Her eyes opened wide. She looked around in panic. Sweat was still dripping from her temples. Jack quickly wrapped his arms around her, his voice gentle. What did you dream about? Are you okay? Tu Tien was still panting, her voice trembling. I just dreamed of a woman, she scolded me. Hated me so much? I can't remember her face clearly, but it felt so real. Jack, I don't know if that's a part of my past. Jack gently tightened his arms, one hand gently stroking her hair, whispering, just calm down. Don't be afraid, everything will gradually become clear. I believe your memory will return. Slowly, I'm always here. Tu Tien leaned her head against his chest, her eyes still filled with bewilderment. But in that warm embrace, her heart softened, as if someone was gently soothing the fragments of memories that were rising in her unconsciousness. That day, the sky was clear. The gentle wind carried the scent of straw and the scent of fields. Jack took Tu Tien out for a walk, hoping that the peaceful countryside air would help her relax and restore her memory. She sat in a wheelchair, being pushed by him along a small dirt road winding between rows of bamboo and fields in the harvest season. The two talked aimlessly, sometimes remaining silent, just listening to the chirping of birds and the rustling of the wind in the gentle afternoon sun. But then, fate struck ironically, at the turn near the ancient banyan tree at the beginning of the village. They unexpectedly ran into a familiar woman, Mrs. Tui. She was standing and chatting with a villager, her appearance still agile, her face showing no fear. As soon as Tu Tien's eyes met hers, her whole body suddenly stiffened. Tu Tien's heart beat unusually hard, feeling as if every cell in her body simultaneously had goosebumps. A vague image from an old dream immediately rushed back, the woman with fierce eyes. A hateful shout, and Mrs. Tui. At that moment, the painful memories that had been buried began to stir in her mind. Vague but sharp as if it had happened yesterday. She saw herself as a small, skinny girl, quietly washing dishes in the cold weather in the backyard. Mrs. Tui stood on the porch and shouted, "Hurry up. If you can't finish, you won't eat." She remembered the dinner when everyone in the house sat down to eat from the same tray while she was kicked out. Sitting by the kitchen cupboard, holding a bowl of cold rice with red eyes. In that memory, she called Mrs. Tui, mother, not because she was close, but because she didn't know what else to call her. Because at that time she believed she was her mother. No, don't look at me. Tu Tien trembled, her lips pale. She held her head, her mind spinning as if it was about to explode. The scene around her blurred. Only the echoes of her memories and the image of the woman standing not far away remained. She stared at Mrs. Tui in panic as if she saw a demon from the past returning. Her breathing was rapid, tears welled up uncontrollably. Jack, who was pushing the wheelchair behind, immediately realized something was wrong. He circled forward, knelt down, and grabbed her hand. Tu Tien, what's wrong with you? Look at me, don't be afraid. But she couldn't hear anything. Her mind was already in chaos. Jack didn't hesitate for a second. He immediately lifted her out of the wheelchair, turned around quickly, and left where Mrs. Tui was standing. She buried her face in his shoulder, her whole body trembling, her mouth softly saying, "Don't let her near me. It's her, it's her." Jack tightened his arms, his heart filled with pain and anger. He understood. Those horrible memories had truly begun to return, and the cruel truth about Tu Tien's past was gradually being revealed. Layer by layer,